Sugar, the white gold, plays a major part in colonial history and pirate history. Sugar became the cash cow of Britain's colonial empire, and they owed this to pirates. Whilst Britain's first sugar-producing colony was Barbados, their most important sugar-producing colony would become Jamaica, which was safeguarded and economically expanded by pirates in the 1660s. They worked together with the landowning aristocrats, who used their shares of plunder to expand their plantations. Many of these pirates retired as plantation owners themselves. Thanks to their piracy-based economy, the Jamaican sugar industry exploded in the 1600s. Sugar was everywhere in the New World. You could buy it cheap or plunder it from almost any ship, since it was grown by every nation in every colony. Even the Native Americans grew it. Basil Ringrose writes that the king, that being the native king of the Kuna Indians in Darien, ordered us each man to have 3 plantains, with sugar canes to suck, by way of a present. Ringrose makes frequent mentions of sugar in his excellent journal. He wrote how Captain Sawkins gifted 2 loaves of sugar to the Bishop of Santa Maria, whom he had previously held prisoner. They looted sugar from countless ships and even plundered an entire sugar work. Sugar burns like a miracle, and they likely used it as a fuel when they burned the mill down. Being a cartographer, Ringrose often described mountains as having the shapes of sugar loaves. But what is a sugar loaf exactly? Pirates didn't actually plunder sacks of white, powdery sugar, the stuff that we use. It's called granulated sugar, by the way. And back then, granulated sugar just didn't exist. Sugar was first produced by crushing the sugar cane and then boiling its juices. When the juices thickened, it was poured into wooden molds until it hardened. This created the sugar loaves. When first dry, they were of a brown, rich color and tasted like molasses. It was called muscadavo, or brown sugar, though it bears no resemblance to modern brown sugar. White sugar, known as clayed sugar, was made by further refining the sugar loaves. Both muscadavo and clayed sugar could only be purchased as sugar loaves, and if you wanted powdered sugar, you had to scrape it from the loaf with a knife. If you wanted a cube of sugar for your tea, you had to use these certain pincers to snap off a bit of the sugar loaf and then put it in the tea. Sugar was used for a variety of purposes. It was mixed with alcohol to make drinks. Spanish gentlewomen beat up egg whites with sugar candy to clean their faces and make them shine. Sugar could even be used for torture. William Bethea writes how, thus bleeding, they put him into a sugar cask swarming with cockroaches, cover him with a blanket, and there leave him to glut the vermin with his blood. Sugar was naturally the main component in various candies. Sweetmeats are frequently mentioned as a plundered goods, and was especially enjoyed by the Spanish. They could be given as gifts, often when someone set sail on a dangerous journey. And for pirates, it was a great morale raiser. Previously in this series, I mentioned how sweetmeats were used in puddings sometimes, and I won't go on to describe the puddings again. You'll have to go and check out the part about pirate bread for more info on puddings. Another type of candy that was often looted were marmalades. Note that it wasn't marmalades as in the paste you spread on bread, rather a solid sort of jelly candy that was popular across the Spanish-speaking and Portuguese-speaking world. Just like sweetmeats, they would be divided amongst the crew's messes. George Shelvach tells us that, on our passage to that island, the sweetmeats being divided amongst our messes, one day a man complained that he got a box of marmalades, into which his knife could not penetrate. It is likewise mentioned that the Spanish officials, responsible for shipping silver back to Europe, would sometimes mold some silver into marmalade boxes, to defraud the king of his share. Spices were used by pirates and colonists to spiff up their diet. I already mentioned the guinea pepper as being used in a sauce. Guinea pepper was also known as Jamaica pepper or pimento, due to its resemblance to peppercorns. Nowadays we call it allspice. Woodes Rogers described the pimento tree as being good fuel. Regular pepper was eaten too. Pepper was an important ingredient in samagundi, a heavy cold salad consisting of various meats, boiled eggs, salt fish, onions, vegetables, whatever you could get your hands on. The dressing consisted of vinegar, lemon or lime juice, garlic, salt and pepper. Again, anything. This dish was allegedly eaten for breakfast by Bartholomew Roberts on the morning of his last battle. William Dampier wrote a recipe to shark stew. The shark was boiled and squeezed dry, then stewed with vinegar, pepper, and other seasonings as desired. These seasonings could have been anything the pirates could get their grubby mitts on. Aside from being tasty, herbs were often used for medicinal purposes. On the pirate hideout of New Providence, Henry Pittman wrote that you'd find tea radix, contra Jesuit's bark, etc. Woodes Rogers reported the finding of good herbs as parsley, purslane, sides in plenty. And additionally, an herb found by the waterside, which proved very useful to our surgeons for fomentations. 'Tis not much unlike feverfew, of a very grateful smell like balm, but of a stronger and more cordial scent. 'Tis in great plenty near the shore. We would gather many large bundles of it, dry them in the shade, and send them on board, besides great quantities that we carried in every morning to strow the tents, which tended much to the speedy recovery of our sick men. Molasses is a byproduct of sugar production that was either skimmed from the boiling sugar or scraped from the pots. It was often plundered and used as a spread on the pirates' doughboys. Molasses was used to flavor drinks or in cooking, but it was primarily used in the production of rum. I mentioned rum as being made from the waste of sugar production. Indeed, rum is often presented as the go-to pirate drink, and whilst they are responsible for the growth of the industry and love to drink it, rum wasn't as popular as we're led to believe. Pirates and sailors in the Caribbean were just as likely to drink wine or brandy. Rum thus cannot be called the go-to pirate's drink. It just had too many contenders. In my opinion, the pirate's iconic drink was hot chocolate, the star of this video. Cacao was one of the most popular exports back to Europe, where it was made into chocolate. Back then they didn't have chocolate bars, so chocolate back then merely referred to the hot beverage. It was drank in households and coffee houses, and especially in the Americas where it was produced. The Spanish were especially voracious consumers of it. In Veracruz, the residents lived most upon chocolate and sweetmeats, extraordinarily sober, and eating little flesh. Every Spaniard from prince to pauper drank chocolate, and it was especially popular as a breakfast. Though some ate the nuts raw or cooked, they were usually ground to a powder and boiled with sugar, allspice and vanilla, sometimes a little achiote to give it color. Pirates too drank it for breakfast. Shelvocke writes that each man had a quart of chocolate and 3 ounces of rusk for breakfast. After plundering the sugar factory, Ringrose said that we had each morning a dish of that pleasant liquor, containing almost a pint. But they drank it whenever they could, and in large quantities. William Fennell wrote merrily how his crew drank it thrice a day for a month. Living near a month upon chocolate, it made us very fat, and we found that it kept us very well in health. Whether if we had lived upon it much longer, it would have done us hurt, I know not, but I am apt to believe that it would have increased our fat too fast, and so made us unhealthy. Chocolate was a great morale booster. When Dampier and his mutineers parted ways with Bartholomew Sharp, they could not forget their chocolate. Since they sailed off with boats of rather poor quality, they likely needed this morale. The acquisition of chocolate was prioritized. Dampier writes, "We sent 4 canoes over to the main, with one of the Indians lately taken to guide him to a sugar work. For now that we had cocoa, we wanted sugar to make chocolate." Pirates are often associated with scurvy and rum. Whilst rum was a loved drink, it wasn't their most common alcohol. And the drink which they seemed to have loved the most, even going their bloody way to acquire, was hot chocolate. The image of a pirate I presented on this channel is much unlike the stereotype. He goes barefoot and wears a pair of short shorts, almost looking like a kilt. His hat looks more like a baseball cap than whatever Jack Sparrow's wearing. His favorite weapon is not a cutlass, but this absurdly long musket slung on his back. He's just had a dumpling spread with turtle fat, and now he's enjoying a fresh fruit to prevent the scurvy. And in his hook-free hand, there's always a smoking pint of hot chocolate. As a note to end this series on pirate food, I'll give you a good word which pirates used in reference to food. Belly timber. Enjoy.
Huge thanks to my generous supporters over on Patreon. Cole Freer, Max Twick, Michaela Jans, 1660, Gusro, Wedgeneer, Dreadbeard, Redhead, Flintlock, George Scall, Jonathan, Lockgar, Padre Jesus, Rachel, and Ted11. If you want to support me monetarily, please check out the links to PayPal or Patreon in the video description. If you want to otherwise support the channel, hit the subscribe and notification button. Share the video with a friend, like the video, and tell me in the comments what you liked or disliked about this one, and what you want to see next. Cheers!